All right. Good evening, everyone. We are going to keep this brief. I'm going to send out the recording on this. I just saw a couple of you chat it as well. Everything will be going out on Tuesday. Tuesday is going to be our any items going out from the training committee. So we will send all of this to you, not only the link to this portion, we're going to send you out the link to our Google Drive for the season. Hopefully, once we get things up on the central hub, we will also duplicate everything there, but each of you will have access to everything that we have. We also have the same YouTube channel from last year. I will again send the link of that, but if you just type in the search bar CLOA training, all of our videos will come up. Thank you, Dan, for coming the other night to talk to our new officials and being our thumbnail. But it has everything that is up in terms of all of our new officials training. When we have everything in a playlist from last year, we're going to put everything in a playlist from this year. Even goes back to 2023 and some other helpful items, but everything will get recorded there. In terms of our Google Drive, we're going to have two folders again, similar to last year. We just simply have a new link with 2025 materials, not as to confuse you on the link, but that way you're not accidentally going to last year's link and taking an old, outdated document potentially. So we have new officials, and then you'll also have access to in-season just to go over what is in them without as a 10,000 foot view. On the NCAA side, we have more materials because there's more coming from the national organizations and different publications, including the NCAA, with clarifications and everything from table crew to essentially bi-weekly rules interpretation updates of the rule book. So all of that is available for everybody there, including the preseason video that is up. As again, we have all the links in the NCAA folder. In terms of the NFHS, and we're going to go through a couple of these now, so that way we're not spending time at the clinic, but we're again going to continue to update these. These are a little bit slower and less because NFHS does not, and US Lacrosse does not necessarily send things out. So we are sharing them within our own organizations at the local level and from other states. So again, those are coming out, but when we do get guidance from the national, we shall put those up. And so with that said, we'll go through them. The ones we are going through is the high school interpretation PowerPoint. That is essentially all of the changes in the points of emphasis.
Oh,
Again, the goal for the clinic will simply be to do training, and we're not going to spend time on a lot of this administrative kind of bog down of what we should be looking at nationally because none of it has really changed. And we're going to go through that. And then the exact rule book changes are in this rules interpretation from February 6th. So we're going to show you those now. In terms of what has changed, it is a page and a paragraph on things. It is very, very small, minor edits that have gone through. I'm not going to read all of them. Most of them spend time talking about chin straps and properly worn helmets. So with that said, to then go
okay.
through again the generalness that is.
You told me one time too.
Oh, we're just going to hit.
Okay.
Give me half a second. We're going to get Dave muted. I saw him out of the corner of my eye. Excellent. And so, again, as you can see, and you can go through these slowly if you'd like on them. We're just going to kind of move through them, but almost everything that has really been emphasized are things we're already aware of. Eye shade, properly worn helmets. The scrimmage area has now been redefined it subtly, but again, it has a bigger implication. The new field diagram, in my opinion, is the old field diagram. It's been the same for the last 3 years. They have just finally noted it at this point in terms of the actual college lining is now the same as high school in terms of that additional, since that box has shrunk to 10 total yards instead of 20 yards, it allows now for that loading zone and that additional coaching zone. And we're going to say that. And then again, redefines unintentional versus intentional checks to the head. Again, if
Okay.
we can make sure we're muted, please, I'd highly appreciate that. And so again, kind of going through the different areas of our properly worn chin straps, it should be worn on the chin firmly, all 4 points buckled. Same with goalkeeper equipment issues is when we're seeing that goalkeeper have an equipment issue within the crease, that is when we are blowing the whistle. If they are outside of the crease and outside of the scrimmage area, we're allowing that play to continue until it is no longer an imminent scoring area. Nothing has changed. They have just reworded some of the differences where they've added something like equipment issue versus simply stick breaking. Again, possession on face-offs and going through what the actual definition is and where, again, what we're doing. You saw changes in the college face-off. They have actually now mimicked the high school face-off. So to not overly confuse you, the high school face-off is exactly same as it's been in the past and specifically last year. Where the college face-off has changed is now officials can adjust both verbally and physically the face-off players to make sure they're in the correct position. So again, on the high school side, we haven't seen any changes. They changed a decent amount of wording within the book, but nothing substantial. Same thing in terms of checking an opponent's cross is just a lot of verbiage has changed and kind of some exact definitions. They've added things like not pinning a, opponent's cross and things of that nature, but nothing in terms of material, in terms of how we're going to change the game. Same thing in terms of restarts. And again, where it added, and this is the same as the NCAA field diagram, we went over this in our clinic quite substantially for about 10 minutes last year. They have now indicated this is a brand new change for this year, even though it hasn't been. So you can see where my little bit of disdain is, but it gives you the idea again where this area, which used to be lined out, and essentially for again substitution area, as the high school had the pylons on the 40-yard lines for football marking, making a 20-yard substitution area, has now shrunken back down to 5 yards on either side of the midline or 10 yards in total. We now have this mystery area, which was no longer defined. We interpreted last year at our level, and other states did the same, that this was either the loading zone or a coaching area. The National Federation has decided that this is still a coaching area. My issue is, again, there is no place for players to go in order to get onto the field. They need to go from a team area through a coach's area or through a timing area to the substitution area. So again, what you're seeing is we are going to consider this that loading zone where before face-offs, we need this clear. There should be nobody in terms of players within this entire area of the wing lines. Again, is the easy area to look at. Coaches may stand in this area, but again, all of the teams back. And again, what this also helps with is keeping the table area and the timing and the scorekeeper, especially if we do have shot clocks or other people looking at different things, as that area gets very crowded very quickly. And again, at the high school level, we don't have shot clocks, but where we see it in college of why that's an emphasis to keep that area clean. And again, they felt that this was one of those three areas that we always talk about on our slow whistles. So it is anything with a face-off violation. We have a controlled, not an immediate quick whistle. Anything within the table area, we go slow on and we're controlled. We're bringing that player 5 out. That's a point of emphasis for this year. And then anything with over and back, we don't want to race to it because, again, our lead needs to get down to the goal and our trail needs to come up in order to blow that whistle. In terms of, again, loss equipment within the scrimmage area got redefined. And again, we'll have an area in that in half a second. But again, in terms of, losing that equipment of what the exact definition is. So again, we'll give you time to read those on your own time in the slides, but just very simplified things where, again, not in terms of substantially changing how you're thinking about it, how you're using your flow charts, how you're using your keys, how you're going through to make calls and keep players safe. Same thing with indirect or unintentional contact is same idea where we have lesser penalties, right? We're not necessarily judging intent all of the time is that things happen and you get hit. Again, in the high school game, the onus is always on the hitter or the person applying the check and not the person with the ball or the person without the ball who is receiving said check or hit. In the college game, it is different. In the high school game, it is always the person who is making the contact intentionally or unintentionally who has the onus to protect the player that they're being hit. Same thing in terms of this slow whistle, right? Is again just looking at a personal foul is committed against the last team in possession during a shot or pass. And again, we talked about things like you're starting every single do not just hear this portion of this. Please don't clip this audio on me. We had a lot of issues last year where people just heard this bit of we have to start a quarter or a period with a face off no matter what. Again, realize when we have a flag down, the flag is going to denote possession. And if we have an uneven scenario in terms of penalty time serving, we're going to award possession. So understand that there is a lot of things going on within the rule book. Again, the reason why we're doing this here on February 23rd is to give you a chance to get back in the rule book and also look at where these points of emphasis were. Same thing where, and I know I keep saying same thing, but again, in terms of this has not changed at any point. This is just a verbiage standpoint where if you have something funky before we have the face-off ending, meaning that it gets over, we either have possession or if we have it going over the restraining lines on either side, is that we would like to reface, and the National has made it very clear they would like refaces. They do not want AP to be used. They want AP to be used very sparingly in scenarios that you legitimately cannot figure out who is awarded the ball. In a scenario where if us as officials, we make a mistake, a whistle sounds because we think somebody came out of the box, but they did not, reface it, allow the players to play the game and have our kind of impact on the game be lessened. And it's okay that that happens, right? But to make sure that we're getting it to the point where it's not a coin toss determining who gets that ball back, but going back to this idea that we can reface the ball. Very briefly on these points of emphasis, and same as last year, as I said, kind of no question comment of our show, but just realize that this is what the NFHS would like and US Lacrosse would like as points of emphasis going into this year. And all their committees talking throughout not only the summer and the fall, but have early this year already ton have talked about is again limiting the use of eye shade to be only what is said within the rules. That is one single stroke below the eye and not extending outside the eye socket. I keep explaining it as it is your second knuckle to the end of your pointer finger, and you put those up, and that is exactly what is pictured right there. That is the only thing on eye black that is allowed. Properly worn equipment is in the same boat where they want. Again, in high school, we saw a little bit less of this. In college, we are still seeing it. In the college game, we are instructed to go kind of chase after if we can get them in the pregame without hunting them down and looking at every player. If you happen to see it out of the corner of your eye and we can police it proactively, let's police it proactively. Again, this is a safety when it comes to the chin straps. We want players' helmets to not be able to be dislodged easily. And we definitely don't want them going to the sideline during a timeout, grabbing their face mask and moving on up is what we do not want. And so with that said, again, we want them to make sure that if that helmet comes off, that player has to come off the field every time, as we said. The scrimmage area, this is one of the legitimate changes that occurred. This is a very fundamentally different way of understanding the scrimmage area, is that it is still within 5 yards, but it can also include what is now called active play. So these 4 words are part of active play. Where we have seen this come up is where, and there's a video clip that's not great, but the video clip that is continually being used is a player is running down the alley with the ball, making a dodge, and they decide to make a skip pass that is across that attacking area, and that player gets hit, let's say legally or illegally. As soon as that pass is made and that player's helmet comes off at that time, that is now still being considered the scrimmage area. Even though that ball is no longer 5 yards away, if that player is still in contact or going to the ground or their helmet came off because it is active play. And again, the easy way to train yourself is they just left the scrimmage area and their portion of the play has not finished or concluded. And so if that player's helmet comes off and then that player across the field catches the ball and shoots, we want that play stopped because that helmet came off still in the scrimmage area, right? And again, it's that safety idea where in this clip, what you saw was this player passed the ball, and then the hit occurred. We had a flag, and then that player who was hitting the passer lands on the passer without a helmet on, right? That's where the danger and the safety issue can be. Is again, you'd say, oh, they're outside the scrimmage area, we might go on. And if it's any part of that equipment being, no longer on the player in that active play area, we might indeed have a whistle. So again, we'll go over that, but that's one of the bigger fundamental ones. Again, this idea of the new field diagram, it still drives me up a wall. If you can't tell, they say new field diagram, and then they didn't really change it to actually be what it should be and illustrate that this line should no longer be there, but they're going off of the old field diagram with just a changed name. This, they're considering the coaching area. We're going to go off of the same thing of our interpretation here on the local level of this, again, is the loading zone, is that immediate, right before the immediate substitution, if a player comes into that area to then go to the substitution box, that is fine. But when we have dead balls and when we have live play, we should be instructing players to clear out. And that is all the way from that 40-yard line or that wing line all the way back is where they should be. They should not be behind this area in the timing area. They should be over. So again, nothing massively different. It's just, again, kind of other organizations catching up to what we've already instructed you. Again, we already went through this, but there's unintentional versus intentional checks involving the head, right? Where we see it of, again, if it's unintentional or inadvertent going on, is that it's a minute. Where then we see it can be intentional, right? Or that kind of direct contact is where we're seeing 2 or 3 minutes or getting into targeting and things of that nature. I again feel that in my view is that intent is not the easiest to judge at all times, but we know when a player is going after another player, and that's what might escalate our time simply based on the nature and context of the game. So understanding that, right, versus just kind of deliberate or indirect contact. Some of the other areas that just came up just to go over, or if you've heard different rumblings, New York State did actually move to shot clocks within the high school game. We have not heard anything on our side, but New York State is using a modified type of shot clock for their game. And so again, just knowing that we are not playing that, if teams from New York come up as well and play any of our schools, we are not intending to play that way. If we do hear something, we will let you know. It is very different than the college shot clock, so to not get completely into the weeds on that, nothing changed on the face-off whatsoever. If you heard anything about a new face-off, again, it is on the college side. To make your life easier, the new college face-off is last year's high school face-off, which is this year's high school face-off, right? So again, nothing to get you confused. It is the same face-off in both games now, and it has gone very well of what we see. Again, diving is prohibited. We've heard a couple different things of that. What we're seeing is a player who jumps into the air and then gets legally checked. Again, you cannot jump or dive under your own volition, and then whatever happens in your air doesn't change that answer, is that you left your feet on your own volition. Again, when to adjudicate a foul for the helmet coming off, right, is that the play is getting killed immediately. Again, it is not necessarily a technical foul like the college rule. In high school. Whoever is deemed to be in possession when that helmet comes off or entitled to possession is going to get the ball in that scenario. If it happens on a face-off where there's no possession, we go to a reface. And if there is a loose ball, we're moving to the alternate possession side of things. The last other ones we just saw on that one, where again, you're seeing On the college level, this massive emphasis on kind of a few things, but essentially this one-handed ward during a loose ball and during a loose ball battle that's on the ground of players using their free hand to gain an advantage. It is different in terms of you cannot initiate that bull dodge and displace somebody's stick or body with your own body and your arm, even if it's in a stationary manner, is that you cannot go towards it. So we can still call a ward call with two hands on the stick at the high school level. And so that's a little different. The stalling side has not changed at all. On the high school side, again, we're getting within 4 goals or less. We're getting in to get it in, keep it in within the last 2 minutes of 4 goals or less. A couple of the other areas, nothing was, after listening to all the webinars, nothing was, again, earth shattering. These were all just kind of revisited questions. So with that said, the last portion of this is we are again going to give out all of these links within the NCAA folder. Some of the things that you may be interested in already. The first one is what we call the John Vernon Special, which is now featured in about 10 different states around the country. So quick for silent round of applause for John. Other states are using this exclusively as their document. And so he has already prepared the 2025 NCAA versus NFHS rules comparison document. He has spent a ton of time on this. It is 5 pages. He essentially ended at 52. There's about a total of 80 or so. I think he'll give me the exact number, but about some very tiny, tiny minutia ones. He also, for your reading pleasure, has ranked them in importance without splitting hairs. So the ones on page 1 are the most likely to be seen and are the most major of differences. All the way down on page 5 are the least likely to be seen and the least likely in terms of what the actual difference is, including about field markings not complying as a issue. You're very, very rarely going to see that issue, but it is something different that occurs, right? So he wanted to make sure we noted it. So again, this has been a tremendous resource for thousands and thousands of officials, and we're not joking when we say that. That is up on the Google Drive. So again, on Tuesday, you'll get a chance to review that. And the other area that he has worked on and has been agreed on, and we will go through, and I will go through my last portion of this. And again, I will send all this out in an email, but we are moving to a third official rule set. It is small, it is 1 page, it is 4 items. So we're going to have NFHS, which is going to govern all essentially public high school, both varsity and JV games and anything underneath that. We're going to have a prep school rule book when there is a shot clock, which is the NCAA rule book. And then we're going to have a NCAA rule book without a shot clock. So there are a handful of schools that this occurs for. So you think South Kent or Marvelwood or Williams School or schools of that nature. And so what we've seen, and even at schools that kind of use a shot clock, they get also schools from other states that come in and play them regularly within their conference. And everybody likes to play a different rule set. We have been using some rules that go all the way back to 2015, believe it or not, that get somehow mashed into this Frankenstein understanding. And the coaches just kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, I guess we'll agree to that rule today. And then you have to remember it. So part of what we have decided, and we went through and we got this approved by all the prep schools here in the state, is that we are going to move to a centralized and an agreed upon modified no shot clock rule set for prep school. So all the NCAA rules apply. Then we have 4 different rules. The awesome part as well is Western Mass is aware of this, along with the Western Connecticut Lacrosse Association. So the Fairfield County Board has also agreed to this. So all schools within the state, at least, and a lot of the visiting teams, all are aware of this rule set and will be using it as well. It only modifies 4 things. Is it essentially because we don't have a shot clock, we get to use high school rule counts, 20 and 10, and we then have over and back after the 10-second is satisfied. There is no dive, just like the NFHS. It's great. We're also going to use the NFHS face-off. The only major difference between the high school and the college face-off is that the high school player gets to stay on if they made a face-off violation. In college, we chase that player for one face-off. And then the last area is that stalling. Again, we're not going to put a timer on or 30 seconds or anything like that. We just have a get it in, keep it in with no automatic stall if we feel that's the scenario. So it's four things that, and to again, Vernon's credit, made it on things we were already trained in using in the high school game. So we're essentially taking the entire NCAA book and where the confusion was, we boiled that down to four things and they revert back to the high school area. So again, we will explain this in our NCAA training more in depth than what I just did, but I wanted to give you a little I can't think of the word, but a chance to kind of digest it a little bit. And again, a chance to know that it is on the Google Drive. So if you're doing prep school games at that level that will not be using a shot clock, this is what we are going to be using. So with that said, my last item, and again, I cannot emphasize this enough, this is going to go out in the email with the Google Drive link, the YouTube link as well, and then we are going to go to a few different items, as we said, in terms of the way we're doing training. So we're going to have on March 4th. So again, we're going to be consistent when we're getting things out. So that's the Tuesday. We are hopeful to get out the test information for the NFHS test. On March 9th, we're going to have our clinic at CIAC. At March 10th, which is that following Monday, we're going to have the Zoom. That is the new officials training. We're going to go normally from 7 to 8 with the new officials. And then from 8 to 9, we're actually going to review the test. We're not going to record that portion, but we're going to open that up to every member within the organization. If you want to jump in, we're going to go through all 50 questions on the NFHS. The idea, again, is to have your test taken before you come in. So we're not going to sit there and explain for 30 minutes each question. We're going to go through and talk about the different points and what the merit of the question is, along with the answers, answer it, and continue moving on. The following Tuesday on March 11th, we are going to part of this agreement with the prep schools about moving to this new rule set along with the new fee increase that President Al got us is we are now required to take a prep school test. Vernon has created that. I've approved it. It's going to be a 41 question test. We are again going to release that on March 11th, which gives you about a week to go through. You do not have to have it submitted, but to get all of the questions answered. And then we are going to, on March 17th, go through for, again, first hour, all of our training for the NCAA and go through the different mechanics. And then second hour, which is similar to the way we're doing the NFHS, we will go through all 41 questions as a group, and anybody can log into that portion. We are not going to record that portion on purpose, and then that gives you the opportunity to finish that test, and then the deadlines will be later that week for you to complete it. So we are purposely and intentionally giving you a calendar, so that way it becomes fresh in your mind. It gives you a chance to review it. It gives you a few days to do it, and then we're going to do it as a group. We can then reinforce everything, and then you still have time, or if anything life-wise comes up, gives you a chance to go back and then still be able to do it before you submit it. And the very last item besides that email, as Dave said, and we're going to spend more time at the clinic explaining this, but observations wise is, again, thank you. We had over 80 people complete the survey, which is amazing. We've noted about 90 people were eligible, so that is almost everybody who did that. So again, we highly appreciate, we heard you. We are changing the way we are doing the clinic internal. Once we get to the clinic, we're going to do it a little bit different based on all of your feedback. Your feedback was very resounding on what you wanted to see, so we're going to go through that for you. And same thing on the observations. We had a lot of people say yes, but we have different methods of doing that this year that we're very excited about. We have a small group with a better officiating committee committee and the training committee who's going to go out to games and see some of you live. We're also going to tap into your partners in games to get honest feedback of how you did, along with we have access now to all the NFHS network and on-demand games, and a lot of schools within our state are going to that system, and it's essentially Huddle. If any of you are aware with that system, we can go back and watch you, and a lot of you asked us to write up game recaps for you. And so John and I feel confident that we are going to be able to get to a few games a week. And the big key is if we target a few different officials, we can watch 2 or 3 of your games and even portions of your game and get a better ideas versus showing up for one quarter and telling you all the things you did terrible because you had a bad quarter, right? And that happens. So we can see different tendencies over different games, and also different contextualize what happens in that game as well. So again, we will go over how we're going to go about that in the clinic, but all of the wonderful things that we have for you. So again, the different rules changes, all the materials that are out, we're going to get out the dates to you. We're going to revamp the observation system a little bit along with a better officiating committee. And again, we're going to send all of that out. I'm going to send all that out via Arbiter in an email on Tuesday. So with that, if Al, you're still on, I'm all
Yeah,
done. And thanks everybody for listening.
that's great. So you can see we have been busy. This has been an ongoing adventure. So